Okay, I think we're going to get started. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight at our virtual public meeting on our proposed sales network as part of our Fair Transformation project. My name is Lindsay Heffernan, and I am the Acting Assistant General Manager for Policy at the T. I'll be moderating this evening's event. Hopefully you can all see some slides now in front of you. First, I want folks to know that the MBTA team has prepared a presentation, and we are going to ask you to hold your comments till the end, though we can't wait to get to that part and hear what you have to say. Second, we'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being both audio and visually recorded and will be made available publicly following the meeting. Before we get started, I do want to go over a few meeting controls for folks who maybe aren't familiar with Zoom. If you could go to the next slide, please. We have live Spanish language translations at tonight's meeting. I want to explain how you can select your preferred language. I'll explain that in English, though written instructions provided on the screen are in Spanish. In your meeting controls at the bottom of your screen, please click the interpretation button. Then select the language that you would like to hear. Even participants listening in English should select English so that they hear any comments being spoken in other languages. So I'd kindly ask everyone to enter one of the rooms available tonight, either English or Spanish. Next slide, please. This meeting also includes ASL interpreters. I'd like to thank Sharon Mendez and Linda Gregoria for being with us tonight. The meeting host will be spotlighting the interpreters to ensure that they can be seen at all times. The ASL interpreters expect to switch at approximately every 15 minutes. If at any point you cannot see the interpreter, you can look for their names and pin them again, or certainly let tech support know through the chat feature. Next slide, please. We also have closed captions at this meeting. If you do not see the captions, please press the closed caption button, which should be at the bottom of your screen to get them started. And next slide, please. If at any point during this meeting you have any technical questions about Zoom or the accessibility features of the meeting tonight, please chat tech support. Tech support should be the top option on your list, and so it should be relatively easy to get to, and we'll do our best to support you. And next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce and have people who don't have their cameras on, turn them on, who are part of our team tonight. On today's call, we're joined by Anna Sangri. You're going to hear a lot from her in just a few minutes, who is our Equity and Sales Network analyst, as well as Anthony Thomas and Dave Perry. Let me let them each introduce themselves quickly to the group. Anna, why don't you go first?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Sangri, and I'm the Equity and Sales Network Analyst for the project. So it's nice to meet everyone.
Hello, this is Anthony Thomas. I am the Manager of Policy Development and Outreach for the MBTA. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Perry. I am the Director of System Installation for the AFC2 portion of Fair Transformation. Good to have you all here. Thanks.
And AFC is the automatic fare collection, is another way we talk about how we're modernizing our fare system. At this point, if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to do a little bit of groundwork, and then I'm going to hand this over to Anna. So our agenda tonight is to cover big picture, what are we trying to achieve through fare transformation or a real modernization of our fare processes, our proposal for how we want to expand the sales network. And then we want to hear feedback from all of you, whether you're riders, elected officials, the public, in order that we get this project right. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. Next slide, please. So some background, you can go ahead. Right now, the MBTA has been paying close attention to our riders who use cash on our system. We know that about 4.7% of trips currently are made with cash on board, where people are paying cash as they board either at the bus, the Green Line, or the Mattapan trolley. When they get on, they're putting cash into the fare box at that point in time. And we know another 3.7% of riders add value to their Charlie card at those fare boxes. So both of those are current use cases that we know are important to our folks. Next slide, please. One of the big goals of fare transformation is to bring all door boarding to the people of Boston. And so what this means is that all of our buses, our Green Lines, and our trolleys will open all of the doors and allow people to board. That instead of everybody being forced through the front door, as you see at this bottom picture, and long lines, and in this picture, no one's waiting in the rain, that both doors can be open, riders can board much more efficiently. We estimate that the buses will spend approximately 50% less time at stops. What that means is that our system will actually become more reliable. We'll be better able to adhere to our schedule, and that we know that's critically important for the users of our system. Next slide, please. Fare transformation is attempting to address various concerns and complaints and critiques we've heard over the years. People want the system, we want to make it faster to pay. We want to make it easier to sign up for reduced fare programs. People want it to be easier to get a Charlie card, the hard one that is more like a credit card. We want to make it easier and faster. We want to open up other mobility options for folks. And many others. These are quotes that we have heard from riders over the years, and we are attempting to address as many of them as we possibly can in this process. Go to the next slide, please. What we want to talk about tonight is in the future, and the future is getting closer. In 2023, the MBTA is going to be moving all cash payments off of our vehicles, and in an efforts to move to all door boarding. So when the new system is implemented, riders will no longer be able to pay cash at the fare box on board the Green Line buses or the Mattapan trolley. We are proposing instead a vastly expanded network of sales locations to ensure there are significant places for cash users to pay for the MBTA. So what's important to say is the MBTA is not eliminating cash. We're eliminating cash being paid on board. We want to shift it to off board to allow for a faster and more reliable service. We know this is really important to people, and our cash riders are an important group for us to pay attention to. And so we brought Anna Sangri on board to help us think about how do we make sure we have reliable and expansive options for folks to be able to still put cash onto their Charlie card accounts and then be able to board our system. And so if we go to the next slide, I'm now going to turn it over to Anna. Please take it away.
Thank you, Lindsay, and good evening, everyone. As Lindsay said, my name is Anna Sangri, and I will be presenting our proposal for an expanded network of fare sales locations. So I'm pretty excited to share this with you all today and get your thoughts and feedback. So as Lindsay said, in order to fully achieve the benefits of speeding up our buses and light rail, we will be removing the ability for riders to pay cash at the fare box on board vehicles when fare transformation is implemented. Along with this change, however, fare transformation will be introducing many new sales channels above what we have today. Riders will be able to use their smartphones, contactless credit or debit cards, and load via a call center, among several other ways to pay. So, however, we recognize that not all riders will have technology access or desire to use the system in this way. Therefore, we are vastly expanding our physical in-person sales channels to accommodate the needs of riders who use the system in different ways. Based on community feedback and discussions over the past several years, We have made this a critical component of our proposal and the upcoming outreach process. We're focusing these physical in-person locations in communities we serve that are low income, communities of color, and or underserved by traditional banking institutions.
Anna, if I can interrupt you real quick, I think there was something wrong with the Zoom closed captioning. If you're trying to access closed captioning, we have dropped that into the chat. There's a link there. And so hopefully people can access that, and you'll see the live closed captioning through that method. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Great. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to click on the link if you have to. Our proposal focuses on fare vending machines and retailers, which encompasses the majority of our new fare sales network. We will be greatly expanding our network of both to serve beyond just rapid transit stations to our many bus stops across the system. So there are two types of fare vending machines that we will be deploying across the network: station fare vending machines and streetscape fare vending machines. Station fare vending machines will mostly replace the fare vending machines in stations you see today. You will be able to get new standard tappable hard plastic Charlie cards here, reload your Charlie cards with passes and transit value, and process account inquiries. And these machines will accept cash, credit, and EBT. Streetscape fare vending machines are a smaller version of the station fare vending machine, resembling a multi-space parking meter. These machines are solar powered and wireless and are much more flexible in deploying outside at bus stops across the network. The streetscape fare vending machine has similar functionality to a station fare vending machine with a couple differences. Rather than dispensing hard plastic Charlie cards, the streetscape fare vending machine will dispense temporary tappable Charlie cards. These have the same functionality as the hard plastic Charlie card, but are just less durable. At station fare vending machines, balances from these cards can be transferred to hard plastic standard Charlie cards. Further, overpayment in cash at a streetscape fare vending machine will be stored as an account credit that can either be cashed out at a station fare vending machine or remain in your account for future travel use. Finally, we will be partnering with retailers across the network to dispense hard plastic tappable Charlie cards and reload Charlie cards with passes and transit value. And all of our retailers must accept cash. So the accessibility features of the new devices was an important consideration during the design process. Here, I've outlined a few examples of the accessibility considerations and requirements for specifically the new streetscape fare vending machines and for retail locations. For streetscape fare vending machines, we designed for accessible heights, as you can see in the diagram on the side, and require having a minimum clear floor space in front. With regards to the display design and screen, we implemented an option for a high contrast mode, which enables users with low vision or color blindness to have an easily viewable black and white version of the screens. We designed content that is concise and intuitive so users don't need to read long blocks of text. Clear audio instructions, easily initiated through the audio button, which can be listened to through the speaker or headphones, and a privacy screen option, which ensures the security of user with a visual impairment while using audio mode, and tactile braille labels alongside the screen. With regards to language, the machines will be in Mandarin, Cantonese, Spanish, Portuguese, and English. We have worked with the MBTA system-wide accessibility department to create a checklist every retailer must complete prior to becoming a Charlie retailer. The checklist includes elements like having a wide enough front door, not requiring a step to enter, and having an accessible path from the nearest bus stop. Finally, we prioritized riders with disabilities during user testing of the machines and have made changes accordingly. For example, we heard during user testing that the ticket and receipt return tray was difficult for users with limited manual dexterity to operate. In the original design, users had to open a small door in an outward direction with one hand and then reach with the other hand into a very small opening to retrieve tickets and receipts. But we worked with the vendor to update the design to make a large return tray and redesign the opening so that the door can be pushed in and tickets and receipts can be retrieved in a single motion with one hand. As station fare vending machines require power and shelter, these will be deployed at stations. But we need to make choices around the types of sales location that best serves our many bus, Green Line, and Mattapan trolley riders. So as you can see here, both Charlie retailers and streetscape fare vending machines have their pros and cons, and some riders may prefer one or the other. Charlie retailers will allow our riders to have a face-to-face interaction to purchase fare products, which may feel safer and allow for riders to ask questions. However, riders rely on the payment types and hours of our partner retailers. Fare vending machines allow for quick interaction and are always open and available. However, the outdoor nature of the machines means they may feel unsafe at night, and the machines issue overpayment as account credit instead of as change. So now that you know a bit more about the devices we are deploying and the background on this project, we're going to get into the process for selecting locations. So as some of you may know, originally the decision around where to put fare vending machines and retail locations was going to be made by the systems integrator, Cubic, following the MBTA drafted quantity standards. But after receiving lots of feedback from the public, we realized that the quantity standards did not reflect the priorities we heard, and we decided to bring the decision-making process back under the MBTA. When we took this back, first we reviewed the past input we had received from a variety of meetings with community members and municipalities. Next, we identified our goal and guiding principles. We then decided on a methodology or approach for choosing which MBTA stops and stations should be targeted for receipt of a sales location nearby. After selecting these stops and stations, we looked at whether these locations are better suited for a fare vending machine or a retailer. Next, we double-checked our proposed network of sales locations to see how the resulting proposal aligned with our goals and principles, including having an outside agency assess the equity of our plan. And this is where we are now. We are engaging the public to hear your thoughts and feedback on how we did, and then we will use the feedback to modify our plan prior to implementation. So after we have deployed fare vending machines and partner with retailers, we will evaluate the resulting network annually against our goals and principles. So informed by past public outreach, we identified the following goal and guiding principles. Our goal is to equitably locate sales locations across the MBTA network to ensure access for riders who need them most. Our guiding principles for achieving this goal are to, 1, prioritize communities that use cash on board today, meaning riders who currently lack sales location access or who are underserved by traditional banking institutions. 2, prioritize high total ridership. So these are locations of high use with a demonstrated need for amenities. 3, prioritize seniors and riders with disabilities. These are populations who cannot travel far to get to a sales location. 4, prioritize locations with high number of low income or Black or Latinx riders. These are riders who have been traditionally underserved by the banking and transportation systems. 5, incorporate geographic distribution to cover need across the network, recognizing the geographic diversity of our region so we can distribute sales locations evenly and ensure all communities have equal access. And 6, prioritize distributed sales location types, including retailers, fare vending machines, and administrative points of sale at community organizations to ensure riders can access the type of location that works for them. So to select locations in line with our principles and goals, we designed an approach and conducted an analysis to determine where best to locate in-person sales locations to accommodate the communities that need them. So this analysis was informed by significant community outreach and conversations with the MBTA policy working group over the past several years. Here you'll see that we've broken our approach to the sales network into 5 categories. First, coverage of locations of high network importance. So these are locations that we are proposing have access to fare vending machines as a standard of service. Many of these places are served by fare vending machines today, but this category is expanded to include the SL3, SL4, SL5, commuter rail zone 1A stations, and Green Line extension. Next, coverage of highest need locations. These are the stops and stations that represent either the highest ridership in the system or the highest cash use in the system. Next, coverage of priority communities. So these stops and stations are relatively high ridership and cash use, but also serve low-income communities, communities of color, seniors, and riders with disabilities. Next, we recognize that there may be riders who prefer to access the system using cash all over our service area. So we've also proposed prioritized geographic coverage in our proposal, aiming to cover as many cash users as possible. Finally, we recognize that we might not have gotten this perfectly right. So we've reserved fare vending machines and retail devices to be able to respond to public feedback. So these maps show a high-level overview of what our proposal looks like across the network. The yellow dots indicate proposed stops and stations where we plan to target fare vending machines. The green dots indicate proposed stops and stations where we plan to target Charlie retailers. And the purple dots indicate where we plan to target both a fare vending machine and a Charlie retailer due to higher need. The grayish dots with the white outline are current MBTA retailers as of January 2021. We include them here because we assume and hope most of our current retailers will continue to be part of our network under the new system. These proposed locations will be used to guide implementation. I do just want to note our next steps will include ensuring that all proposed locations are suitable for a fare vending machine or retailer, working with our municipal partners to secure installation permits, and recruiting retail partners. The final resulting network, therefore, may not look exactly like this, but this is what we are striving to achieve. At this point, I would also like to point out that we have a couple online tools created with the help of our customer technology department that allow you to take a closer look at locations near you. So I'm going to provide a quick demo for you here, but I encourage you all to check these out further in your own time. So this is our first tool. This allows riders, can you see this okay?
Yes.
You can see, okay. So this is the first tool. This tool allows riders to input a particular address or location and see all of the proposed sales locations nearby. So I'm going to put in an address in Chelsea. And you can see all of the proposed locations near that address. If you find a location you're interested in, you can also view how to get there, either via the MBTA trip planner or Google Maps. So you can see the trip planner. Now I'm gonna show you an intersection in Cambridge. You can put in either a intersection or an address, so you can see the closest locations to that intersection. Our second tool is if you're looking for more of a broader view of what the proposal looks like, so you can visit the map view. So in the map, you can also input addresses. And it'll zoom to the location that you input. So here we are, Bellingham Square in Chelsea again. And so you can see the dots on the map where we're proposing fare vending machines, retailers, or both. Again, the yellow is a fare vending machine, the green is a retailer, and the purple is both. And the blue dots are existing MBTA retailers. So you can select the dots to see what is being proposed there. So this location is Washington Ave at Broadway, and it's flagged for both a fare vending machine and a Charlie retailer. And we selected it because it's one of the highest cash and total ridership locations. And you can also see the bus routes that are served by that location. So all of these tools are live on the MBTA website. And there's also a forum where you can suggest additional locations or give us general feedback. And we will share the links and a bit more information about these tools on a later slide. I'll switch back. Can you see okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. In order to check our work, we've started to evaluate our proposed sales locations. Here you'll see that the proposal covers 90% of all boardings on bus and light rail within a 2 to 3 minute walk from the stop, factoring in the ability for riders to go negative by one fare in the future system. This means that for 98% of bus and light rail trips, there will be a physical sales location within 2 to 3 minutes of either the start of the trip or the end of the trip. So looking only at trips paid for in cash, that number rises to nearly 100%. So this evaluation used 2019 trips and boarding data, but for comparison, we also looked at 2020 ridership and found little difference. So now that we've talked a bit about the plan, I now want to dive into implementation. So one important component to standing up a sales network that works is ensuring that we bring retailers into the network who meet the needs of our riders. So this is why we've created a retailer strategy to, one, understand what retailers are near our proposed locations, and two, prioritize retailers who better meet the needs of our riders. So before a retailer becomes a Charlie retailer, we will collect information from the retailer on hours of service, types of payment accepted, type of retailer, and languages spoken. The retailer will also be evaluated for accessibility for folks with disabilities. We will then compare the retailer to other nearby retailers based on the information we collect, compare the retailer's attributes to the need of the nearby stops, and select the retailer best serving our riders, or alternatively, decide the location should receive a fare vending machine instead. So now I want to give an overview of our next steps toward implementing this plan. So first, we will compile all the feedback we receive from you and other members of the public and modify our plan based on this feedback. Next, we will seek partnership with retailers and find suitable sites for fare vending machines using a plan to guide those locations. We want to stress that the locations proposed will guide implementation, but specific locations are subject to successfully partnering with retailers and finding suitable fare vending machine sites. So we're prepared to move locations from the retail work stream to the fare vending machine work stream if they unsuccessfully progress in one or the other, and find alternative locations when necessary while staying aligned as best we can to the plan. We will then be working with cities and towns during this process, and also coordinating with other streetscape and transit improvement projects that may affect where we can install vending machines or partner with retailers. Once we have secured locations, we will deploy the retail devices and install vending machines. And finally, after our network is fully deployed, we will annually review the network of locations to find gaps and make sure the network continues to meet our goals. So as I mentioned, every year, we will evaluate our sales locations to monitor how the network is serving the needs of our riders and communities. Our current thoughts for this ongoing evaluation reflect our guiding principles. However, we're still working on these and are very interested in hearing suggestions. At this point, we have considered monitoring access geographically distributed across the system, access by low-income, minority, and limited English communities, access in high ridership locations, and access by cash-dependent users. For retail locations, we have discussed monitoring accessibility by riders with disabilities and hours of operation, but again, we're interested in your feedback. So this is where you all come in. We need feedback from the public to make sure that we are getting this right. So listed here are the main public online tools we have available to give feedback on our plan. Again, the location finder allows you to input your address and receive a list of proposed locations near you. The sales network mapper allows you to view the whole network of proposed locations and input your address to take a closer look at proposed locations in your neighborhood. And the online feedback form allows you to suggest specific additional stops and intersections where we should target a sales location, suggest specific retailers you would like to see participate in the system, tell us about the types of retailers you would like to see participate, give suggestions on how we should evaluate our plan ongoing, and give any additional feedback on the proposed locations. So this is a great tool for you to add your comments, questions, and suggestions on a variety of topics important to the development of the sales network. So you can see the links on the slide, which will be posted online after the meeting. And I think they're also in the chat. And thank you all so much for listening. I'm going to turn it back to Lindsay to guide public comment.
Awesome. You can go to the next slide. So here's where we turn to all of you. We need your feedback. We need your feedback. These are some of the questions we're interested in hearing back from you on. Does our framework for selecting locations make sense? Do we have the right principles or priorities for targeting sales locations? When we think about annually evaluating our network, what should we be looking for? What should we be taking account of? Are there certain kind of retailers that you wouldn't feel as comfortable purchasing Charlie products, or the opposite of that? Are there places where you would feel more comfortable purchasing Charlie products? If you have a preference between retailers or fair vending machines, tell us why. We think we have some ideas, but we can always use some more. And then of course there are opportunities for you online to give us really detailed feedback about, you know, the corner of Broadway and Main, what you want to see happen there. So certainly feel free to use those tools as well. If you can go to the next slide. So we're at the point of the evening where we're going to open it up to all of you. I just want to explain how some of this is going to work virtually. Questions can certainly be submitted in the chat pod. We'll do our best to get to all of them. There are not too many people here tonight, so I'm sure we'll be able to. But please know that all comments, whether spoken out loud or put in the chat, are part of the public record and will be shared with the MBTA leadership. To make a comment aloud, you must virtually raise your hand. To do this on a screen, on a computer, you're going to press either the Alt and Y button at the same time, or click the raise hand button at the bottom center of your screen. On a mobile device, you're going to also click the raise hand button at the bottom center of your screen. For those who are joining us by phone, you're going to dial *9. And once you've raised your hand, you'll be added to the queue with others who have raised their hands. I will call on folks on a first come, first served basis. When it's your turn to speak, I will say your last name or the last 4 digits of your phone number, and I will let you know that I am unmuting you. If you're on a computer or mobile device, a box will pop up in the center of your screen, and you will need to confirm that you'd like to be unmuted before you begin speaking. If you're on a phone, an automated recording will let you know that you are unmuted, and you may speak as soon as the recording finishes. Once you're unmuted, everyone in the meeting can hear you. Before making your comment, please slowly state your name, and if you have any affiliation with an organization or a government entity, that would be helpful. Please remember to speak slowly, as we have 2 interpreters working with us this evening. Limit all comments to no more than 2 minutes so we can get to everybody. We ask you to only make 1 comment to start to ensure everyone gets the chance to speak. And if you have more comments to make after that, of course, feel free to raise your hand again. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask folks to either put their questions in the chat or raise their hand if they would like to comment. And if you'd like to make a comment, you can raise your hand by selecting reactions at the bottom of your screen. I'm sorry, I said raise your hand. Zoom changed their buttons. You're going to hit reactions and then raise hand. Okay. It looks like we have a question in the chat about how large are the streetscape machines? Anna, could you go back to that slide? And either Anna or Dave maybe can answer that.
Yeah, Dave, do you want to jump in? Probably know better than me.
Sure. The Streetscape Fair vending machine is the one that's pictured in the middle with all those dimensions on it. And it's actually made by the same company that makes the parking meter devices for municipalities and cities and towns that have gone to a parking meter, a digital parking meter vending machine. So it's the same size as one of those machines. I don't remember exactly the footprint of it, but it's relatively small and it's relatively streamlined device. And you can see that that red, you probably can't read the words too well, but that red line depicts the limits of where the interactive parts of the machine need to be. So that top one is 48 inches. The top upper red line is 48 inches above the ground, 4 feet. So you can get a sense of how big it is by looking at that. Probably about 5 feet tall overall, 4 feet to those buttons.
Thanks, Dave. We have another question is, will the no cash on board fare policy apply to commuter rail zones? And the answer to that is yes, although it will be slightly more delayed. We have commuter rail will roll into the fare modernization or transformation project in 2024. At that point in time, they will no longer accept cash payments on board commuter rail vehicles. Folks will tap on validators on their platforms before they board the commuter rail. I hope that is helpful. If anyone on the team has more to add to that, they certainly can.
Hi, Lindsay. This is Anthony. I think the thing that I would add is that one difference between our current system and the future system is that in the future, stored value that is stored on your Charlie card will be able to be used on the commuter rail as well. And so you'll be able to tap your Charlie card on one of those validators on the platform of the commuter rail. And then once you tap out, that stored value will be able to be used to pay for your fare. We'll also be accepting contactless credit cards and smartphone payments at those same validators on the commuter rail as well.
Great. Thank you very much. And I'm going to remind people that they can raise their hand if they want to be able to share a comment aloud. I don't see any raised hands right now, but we do have another question in the chat, and the question is, what are other cities that are using these type of fare vending machines, and what has their experience been with them, both good and bad? I'll start, and then I'll let other people on our team share. Our vendor, Cubic, is an international leader in fare vending machines, and these are similar to those they've deployed in other cities. These devices will be taking advantage of the learning that Cubic has gone through by deploying these in other cities. I know they're using them in Vancouver, in San Diego, in Chicago. There were modifications made to the design specifications, as Anna mentioned, based on some of our user testing. And so we're continually improving. I'm going to pause and see if anybody else on the team has something else they'd like to add about the fare vending machines specifically.
Yeah, I'll jump in and I'll repeat something that Anna mentioned on the accessibility slide, and that was we had very specific requirements for the fare vending machines, and we had a special focus on accessibility, and we did user testing with accessibility for the fare vending machine, and we found that, as Anna mentioned, there was one aspect of retrieving change from the bin. It proved difficult in some situations, and we worked with our vendor to redesign that aspect of the fare vending machine and to improve it. So while we're taking advantage of some pretty proven technology, we've also worked with the vendor to do user testing specific to the requirements of the MBTA and really make these things as good as they can possibly be.
Thank you, Dave. I don't see any hands raised. And so I'm going to just remind people to raise their hand. To make a comment, you can raise your hand by selecting the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, and then you should see a raised hand option. It looks like, okay, I'm getting a question. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So is there any thought to having a cap on fare paid per month based on the maximum zone used in the month, so you would not need to buy a monthly pass in advance? For example, Sydney, Australia also has a maximum fare system-wide on Sundays and a maximum fare charged per week based on the maximum distance traveled in a week. And they have other unique ways of making fares better. We have lots of thoughts about that topic. Anthony, do you want to take a swing at that and also encourage our the questioner that they can join some of our upcoming meetings as we think about fare structure, other changes we can make. But thank you for asking the question. Go ahead.
Exactly, Lindsay. That's what I was going to mention. The new fare technology enables lots of different future fare structures and changes that we can that we can pursue. Fare capping, as you're mentioning in your question, is definitely something that is technically possible in our new fare system, but we need to have a broader conversation with our riders to evaluate whether or not that's something that they are interested in us pursuing. And so we are launching a process to discuss just that in May. So please, I'll put a link in the chat so that you can learn when we're going to be launching that initiative, but please stay tuned for May.
And so I think the important thing, I'll just reiterate what Anthony said, is once fare transformation has really been fully implemented, we'll unlock a lot of flexibility to rethink how we have structured fares across the system, but also on the commuter rail when we think about zoned fares. So thank you. Okay, we have another question that's come through the chat. How does fare validation at non-gated stations work? Is it similar to electronic toll readers? Well, you tap on as you get on board a vehicle, and you can do that at either of the doors. I might lean on Dave if you want to say something more about the technology. I don't know how electronic toll readers work, and if it's similar to that, but maybe you could say more about the interplay between the fare media and the validators themselves.
Sure. I think the important thing to think about in the future fare system is that all transactions will be a tap. So you'll be tapping something at a reader regardless of what mode you're on. Now we're all familiar with tapping to get through the subway gates right now, but we also tap when we get onto a bus at the fare box. This new system will expand that and add readers at all of the doors of all of the buses and all of the doors of all of the Green Line trolleys, so that you can tap on board those vehicles when you board. So specific to the question, at a non-gated Green Line surface station, somewhere out, on Huntington Ave or out in Newton on the Riverside branch, you will board the bus at you board your Green Line vehicle at any door, and you'll tap on a reader that's inside the vehicle. And then similar, you know, consistent with what we said earlier about the commuter rail, it'll also be a tap on and tap off experience for the commuter rail. And that's a tap. Your tap is not on the vehicle, it's on the station validator that's on the platform. So regardless of what mode you're using, it'll be a tap. And that tap will register the beginning of your trip. On a commuter rail trip, for example, that tap will register the beginning of your trip, and then your tap off will register the end of your trip, and we can calculate your fare using that information. We don't need you to tap off if you're using a bus or a light rail vehicle or a subway, since those fares are all the same. So we can subtract your fare or validate your monthly pass or whatever when you tap on to get onto a bus, a green line trolley. Oh, and then the other thing I'll mention is the Mattapan line. The Mattapan line will also use validators on the station platform, similar to commuter rail. So you'll tap before you board the Mattapan trolley, and then you can take your trip. And again, there's no need to tap off on the Mattapan trolley because it's a flat fare.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. I'm going to encourage folks to feel free to put any more comments in the chat, and you can chat that to tech support and or to raise your hand, and you can raise your hand through the reactions button and then a raised hand. We have another question. So part of the question is, will there be a dedicated app where you can also add fare to a card? And so the early list that Anna showed, she sort of was focusing on the physical places where you could add cash to your Charlie Card account. There will also be a new Charlie Card app that will allow for interaction with your account, and one app that will apply to all the modes. So different from today where you can use M-Ticket, but only M-Ticket on commuter rail, one app that will work for everything. So the entire system will be integrated.
Lindsay, if I could add just one thing, one of the big differences with the system that we're building that is different from some other systems in agencies across the country is that cash users will also be able to access that app. And so, for example, if an individual wants to use their smartphone to tap, but they don't have a credit or debit card, that individual will be able to go into a retail store or to one of our fare vending machines and load cash onto their account and then use their phone to tap. And so that's something that we're really proud of because we recognize that some folks do have smartphones, but they don't have credit or debit cards. And so we wanted to make sure that those folks had access to the system as well.
And Anthony, before you go away, we have another question that is similar, slightly different. How will senior and other reduced fare cards be handled, and how do you get a reduced fare card or ability to use a credit card or an app for reduced fares? And certainly we will definitely still have all of our reduced fare programs. Functionality for the reduced fare programs is still absolutely going to be available. Anthony, would you want to add anything more about that specifically though?
Sure, absolutely. All reduced fare programs will also be able to access the apps, the smartphone payments as well. Essentially how it will work is that your account will be flagged as a reduced fare account. And then you can identify what we call in our speak a credential, which credential you'd like to use to access the system. So if you're a very tech savvy senior that would like to tap with your smartphone, your account will be flagged as a senior account, and you can go in and say that you want to use your smartphone as the thing that you tap. And then when you tap your smartphone, you will get a reduced fare. One of the things that we're really proud about in this new system is that actually being able to join those reduced fare programs will be easier. Since it's an account-based system versus a card-based system, you'll be able to, for example, go to a senior center where we've kind of entered into an agreement for that senior center to be able to grant the senior eligibility. and you could go to that senior center with an existing Charlie card. They would look at your ID to make sure that you're old enough, and then they would be able to go in a system and add you to what we call a senior group. And once you're in that senior group, you can immediately take that Charlie card that you already had and go and get onto a vehicle and get a reduced fare. And so in the future, it'd be much faster and much easier for folks to be able to join reduced fare programs, which is a big concern that we've heard from riders today. So we're really excited about that.
And another question that we have in the chat begins by saying devil's advocate, so we appreciate it. How will the system ensure that a rider actually taps to enter if no one is watching? So you're previewing for us our next big topic for outreach is moving to a proof of payment model. Once we have the ability for people to enter through all the doors, that is the big benefit we're moving towards. We do need to make sure that we don't lose too much fare revenue based on people not paying. We expect people to make mistakes. We expect it to take some time for people to transition and to do a good campaign of rider education. But for those who do not pay, our future system will be designed that proof of payment means that you have to keep a proof of your payment on you at all times while you are on the MBTA system, and that MBTA will be able, employees would be able to ask you to show your proof of payment once you're on our system. In the future, we will have a fare verification team that will be standing up in calendar year 23, whose job will be to, just like you see if you visit European cities or other places, proof of payment is now common practice amongst public transit agencies, whose job will be to walk up and down the length of a bus and ask everybody to show their proof of payment. They'll be able to tap that data. Everything is taps. They'll be able to tap that fare media, and their handheld devices will be able to ensure that that person has actually tapped when they got on board the vehicle. We are going to get a lot more into that topic in the month of April. We're doing outreach about that. This month has been Sales Network. Our April outreach is on proof of payment, and so we look forward, welcome you to come back, our devil's advocate friend, and ask us some more questions, but we'll have even more to talk about in terms of what proof of payment looks like. So hopefully that is helpful.
Lindsay, for the person that asked the question also, I just threw in a chat what we nerdily call a white paper about proof of payment. So many of their questions may be answered by that, but we also look forward to talking more with the public about proof of payment starting in April.
And this slide also has on it, the May focus is on those fare rules. So things like fare capping and transfers and some of the other potential things that we could do in the future are all upcoming topics. So more to come on some of those. At this point in time, I recognize we're getting close to the hour. I don't see any other questions in the chat, and I don't see any other hands raised. The MBTA team really wants to thank you for coming in. If you could go for one more slide, our email address for the team is at publicengagement@mbta.com. Every time we talk to the public, we learn something new about how we could do this better. And so we thank you very much for all of your comments and questions for us tonight. Please feel free to use that email address. Check out the map. Look at what is available for you in your neighborhood or where you work or where your family is. There is an online comment form that allows you to tell us more about what kind of retailers we should use, what hours should they be open. We're really looking for your feedback. So please feel free to use all of those options and share your insight with us. And I want to thank Anthony, who just put many of the things I just mentioned into the chat. So you now have a whole bunch of links to click. And the MBTA team will stay here for a few minutes, but I think at this point in time, I'd love to thank our interpreters and thank all of the MBTA team who has put a lot of effort into getting us to this point in time, and mostly thank all of you for spending an hour with us and helping us to make the system better. We hope for you in the future. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great night. Right all. Thank you and good night.